Non-binary elephant.
Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Non-Binary Elephant podcast. I'm in bed. You might be able to see that. I'm not very well, but the show must go on. I'm doing it on my own today because my brother is in Mexico in the sunshine, which he desperately needs because he's the palest man on the planet. I'm joined by the two Riches, the guys that made the Plugged In documentary. It's a documentary about social media and the toxicity of that, how it links into teen suicide, depression, anxiety, and various other things. It's a really, really good documentary, and I'm not just sort of kissing ass here. It really is really good. I really enjoyed it. When I say good, it's good in the sense that it's freaking terrifying and alarming, but it's brilliantly well made, and it really makes you think. What got you guys into making it? What made you go, do you know what, I want to make a documentary about social media?
Well, we started chatting a couple of years ago, didn't we, Rich?
Yeah.
Maybe a year and a half. And I did a podcast for you on your channel, and that started the conversation, didn't it? So my background is a self-defense instructor and as a nightclub doorman first, before I was ever a life coach, and then I started talking about personality disorders. And Rich had an experience with a girl. What did you say you thought she was, Rich? BPD?
She told me that she was diagnosed borderline personality disorder, but then again, you're getting it from someone with borderline personality disorder, so what do you believe? But she showed all the traits of it, put it that way.
It's probably true. Borderlines will usually just say, like, I got this diagnosis. So yeah, we started that conversation. We thought about doing a documentary together, and we wanted to look at originally childhood trauma, particularly complex post-traumatic stress. And that was the original concept, because we particularly wanted to look at, like, why are there spiraling rates of suicide amongst adolescents, and why is there so many mental health issues? We thought that would be the road to go down. And then as we started to talk about it and explore it, we opened the door to looking at the possibility that social media could be a cause, which, when we came across that, I actually thought that was bullshit. I didn't think that was a real problem at all.
No, I was going to say then, in the trailer you actually say that you went in with a certain mindset, which was it was probably fear mongering. Just older generation saying, it's bad because in my day, but actually it is pretty toxic.
Terence McKenna talked about it, and so did Robert Anton Wilson. There's definitely a trait, like a personality trait, in people where they become neophobic. So you'll get, like, older generation people who love the new, they're into new technology, they're into new things, and then you get people who are neophobic, and it sounded like intergenerational neophobia. The way it's being spoken about was similar to the way in which people used to talk about punk music, and before that the way they would talk about rock music, and before that the way they talk about jazz music. It's corrupting the minds of a generation, and you just think, is it though? I mean, it's just for saying hello and sharing funny pictures of cats, isn't it? And then when we actually started to get a little bit deeper into the mechanics of social media, then I realized there actually is a problem there, mainly because the people who create social media have openly admitted that they've added elements to it that exploit the vulnerabilities of human psychology, and they know full well have a destructive impact on the personality individually and the culture collectively. They know that it polarizes people politically and segregates people into little tribes and makes them all full of conflict and rage with each other.
That's psychotic, isn't it? If you're knowingly doing something like that, that would come under the description of psychotic, wouldn't it?
I think if you start, I mean, the guys we're talking about are guys our age. They're a similar sort of age to us. They're sort of between 45 and 30, and I think they rode the crest of a wave, and they really didn't know what it was going to do, and they wanted to make money and they wanted it to be successful. I think once you've realized, though, that you've created a monster, you'd start to think, okay, it's very nice being extremely wealthy, but it's also nice to not make children kill themselves because they feel bad in their self-image. So yeah, the psychopathic element comes in when they're presented with the data, the research, the statistics saying, look, this is definitely having a negative impact on people. We should do something about it. And they either do nothing, or the effort they make to do something about it is very symbolic and very flaccid.
Is it a case of the government isn't doing anything about it in terms of putting things in place to protect people, safeguard kids and whatever. Is it that, or is it the case that the social media giants are just so big that they're untouchable?
I think it's the problem is we're in totally new territory, and large organizations usually take an unforgivably long time to catch up with what the hell is going on at the street level, at the frontline level. And I think the government doesn't know what to do, and the social media giants are making their money. So the big Titanic ship that they're sailing is sailing in the right direction as far as the shareholders are concerned, and as far as the game of capitalism is concerned, because the game of capitalism is won by points, and the points are called money, and they're making tons of money. So why stop? Government doesn't know what to do, and nobody's sort of taking control of it and saying, okay, this is bad. If the three of us started selling a new made-at-home drug on the streets of Derby, and it was having the same impact on a fraction of the number of children, they'd lock us up straight away because they know what to do. They can identify it. But with big corporations, they don't really know what to do. There's international law. There's the fact that taking on huge corporations like that is always going to be a mind-bendingly difficult and money-sucking exercise. But at the end of the day, in my humble opinion, if you as a governmental body want to lay claim to the right to have the power to arrest people for crime, it behooves you to apply that rule of law to the little fish as you would to the big fish. Otherwise, you lose the right to apply that rule of law to me. So if I'm selling drugs on the streets of Derby and you lock me up and I go, hang on, you know this Facebook that you allow to operate within your national borders that's causing kids to commit suicide? Why don't you have you arrested anyone? Have you begun the process of looking at the possibility of arresting anybody? And the answer, of course, would be no. The point I'm making is a little facetious, but I think you can say it in that way. If there is law, there is law.
I think also, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of people that you spoke to whilst making the documentary, is there almost like a bit of, yeah, it's bad, isn't it? Anyway, what's on telly attitude towards that? Because I speak to people and I don't think I've ever had a conversation with anyone, whether it be in the pub or at the football or wherever, where you talk about social media and you say, I think it's pretty bad and it's pretty dangerous. I've never had someone go, rubbish, I think it's brilliant. They all kind of agree and know that actually there is a real negative part of it.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do about it is sort of the attitude. Is that something you come across as well?
I think that is the inculcated apathy that actually social media fosters. But you'll notice they don't have that lackadaisical attitude on the key subjects that have been encoded into the current agenda that people should get upset about. You say something about transgender or homosexuals or racism, and you'll get an impassioned emotional response. You say something about social media and you get the apathetic response. And I just go, that's just programming. They're programmed to respond with emotion and motivation. I feel very strongly that white privilege is the thing that holds back minorities in this. And you're like, whoa, okay, all right. So there's a lot of feeling there. What about this thing that you use, that I use, that everybody uses, that makes kids want to kill themselves and that fractures culture? Yeah, well, we know it's not right, but I think that's pure conditioning. On that one point, I'm an absolute conspiracy theorist. I think that is an absolutely pre-programmed agenda. There are things we're supposed to feel upset about, and we're allowed to spunk out our emotional energy on that. And there are things that you're supposed to feel apathetic about, and it doesn't matter. Sorry, Richard. Spaff out the emotional energy.
I know, because I'm looking at you, and the minute you said spunk out, I just saw him giggle, which is great.
I'm 38. I'll get there one day.
That's our professional relationship is based on making each other giggle over nothing,
over
things that 12-year-olds would think were immature.
Yeah. It's to get it out your system, isn't it? That's what we say. You get it out your system, and then we can go on and be adults elsewhere. I think what you're saying there is right. They've got the whole Cambridge Analytica part of it, where the data mining, and the whole point is to push people's thoughts and feelings, and it is an abusive relationship. Social media is abusing us, the user. One that we are the commodity. We said yesterday, we are the ones who make all the content. But they're pushing us to make the content that they want us to make. So we are, for free, being, I believe, I'm a conspiracy theorist, I love all that stuff, but you are being abused to make the content that they want, and even if you didn't, they're getting the data of what works and what doesn't. That's the point. Yeah. We're in an experiment.
Well, there's a girl actually in the documentary who says, I can't remember her name now, which is dreadful of me, but she says on Instagram, if she puts up a picture of herself, a selfie, she will get a certain amount of likes. Claire, sorry, that are through the roof. And yet if she goes out on a nice walk with her family, she puts up a picture of her and the dog or a beautiful scene or whatever, nothing. So therefore she then subconsciously says, well, I'm going to put up pictures of myself then. That is conditioning, isn't it?
It's conditioning. It's conditioning for narcissism, because I actually before she told me that, I ran the same experiment with my Instagram. I've deleted my Instagram since making the documentary, but I watched something. It was by guys who were in the red pill community and the pickup community. It was a YouTube video, and they were talking about the principles of online marketing applied to getting goals. And I was like, oh, I'll have a bit of that. I'll watch that. So I watched that. And the guys were saying, with your social media usage, there was one guy who was an expert they brought in. He was an online marketer. He said, be more narcissistic. He didn't use that word. He said he went around the houses. Be more self-centered and just self-aggrandizing and all the rest of it. That's what is appreciated in that medium. So the next day or 2 days later, luckily enough, I managed to blag myself into a business class flight from Bangkok to Dubai. And I took a picture of it. And then I said, business class flight Bangkok to Dubai, and I posted it, and I went, well, I'm a twat. I was like, click, let's do this. And then I flew, and I think it's like an 8-hour flight, and I got off the flight, reconnected to my Wi-Fi, and lo and behold, it had 1,200 likes inside of 8 hours. My average post, if I'm posting about recovery from complex post-traumatic stress or healing or whatever, would get 400 likes over 3 days. This one got 1,200 likes in 8 hours. And I'm like, well, I'm a moron for posting it, but everybody else is a moron for fucking rewarding me for that vacant narcissism.
But then that narcissist, it's easy for you to say, that narcissism links then in to the depression itself, because I know if I'm feeling shit, which we all feel shit sometimes, and I go on social media, I'm not going to see other people feeling shit. I'm going to see other people posting pictures about their amazing lives and how, their kid never cries at night. And, all these things that are absolute bollocks. They're absolute nonsense. But then they make me feel worse, because what is it about me? Everyone else's life is great. My life's shit. And then obviously the spiral's in the end. And in the end, I do something silly.
Well, I think in the end, it comes out to the sort of like the Stepford Wives sort of thing. That's what we're all going to be. Is kind of this fake facade, Tim Burton little world we live in of people that aren't really people. Yeah, they're not allowed to be people.
No, I think, and I do it. I know I do it, but I do it subconsciously. It's not a conscious thing. But I was just telling you guys yesterday, like we just got back from North Wales. We stayed in a little log cabin. It was beautiful. It was amazing. But Alora was poorly. Basically, she got a cough, so she was really unsettled through the night and that. And I'll be honest with you, mate, it was a freaking nightmare, because we weren't sleeping. In the day, we were exhausted. She was grizzly, and it wasn't great. So I came back and I spoke to a client of mine. He was saying, holiday looks amazing and stuff. And I was like, yeah, it was all right. I said, blah, 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 but it was hard work. And he was like, mate, like, you wouldn't know. It looked like a freaking hello shoot from your social media. And that wasn't me consciously doing it. It's just, I'm not going to post a picture of my daughter crying at 3 a.m. I'm just not going to do that. But I am going to post a picture of me and her in the hot tub. So anyone looking at that is thinking, oh, Gareth's got a great life. Look at him there. My life's shit. He's there, blah, blah. And what they don't realize is actually we're all having a bit of a nightmare sometimes. Yeah. And, and I know my wife, like when sorry, I'm rambling, but when my daughter was first born, she had colic because she was tongue tied. And it was honestly 7 weeks it was like the end of the world. And my wife's really honest, so brutally honest when it comes to me. But she was
perhaps too honest, I think, is the implication.
Probably, yeah.
Tone it down, love.
She was posting. It's cold. She was posting on social media saying, like, this is what's happening. This is a nightmare, and basically trying to get advice off of other mothers and whatever. And she got messages from people going, I don't know how you're doing that. Like, I couldn't be as honest as you are being. Like, I couldn't post that. It's almost like we're conditioned to think, I'm having a real shit time, but I don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. When all we need to do is talk about it.
Well, what you're talking about that one key issue. When we were making the documentary, I was talking about status anxiety, which is a psychology concept I think developed in the early 2000s. It's not quite right. I'm using the term status anxiety, but there is this feeling, particularly among younger people, like everybody else's life is awesome and mine sucks. Normal is not good enough. Why am I not famous? Why am I not a YouTube star millionaire? Why don't I have 1 million followers? Why don't I look this way? Why don't I have a lifestyle like this? Even though on another level, when you actually talk to them in interviews and go, you know, most of that is bullshit, right? They rent their fucking Ferraris. They buy their followers. They're all the pictures of them are photoshopped to death, filtered to death. And they'll say, yes, I know that. And you end up not just with this status anxiety that leaves them feeling depressed and anxious in the way that you've described, but split. Like their minds are fractured. They're going, yeah, okay, I know that it's not true, but the false reality that's being promoted by, let's say, Richard Willett, who we know as a normal chap, but online is like this super successful gangster rapper, champagne, women in thongs. I could see Richard in that scenario.
Well, mate,
See me in thongs.
Seeing you in thongs, I mean, makes it up.
Two
makes
thongs.
it up. I mean, we're in 2019. Turn it round. The ladies can be fully clothed, and you dance for them, Richard.
I will
Women's
do.
rights, man.
I'm actually quite a mean dancer, to be honest. I am.
You're quite a mean lap dancer. I could believe it.
Yeah.
But even if we all know that that's not true,
Yeah.
you still get your credit for it, and there'll be no shame. So if I see you in the local Tesco, and I know you're blagging it to death on Instagram, I won't be like, oh, you fucking liar. I'll go, wow, well done, mate. You won the game. You tricked everybody into thinking you have this respect is due. Respect to you for doing this amazing. So now we're not just being rewarded for narcissism. That's 2012. Being rewarded for narcissism, passe. Being rewarded for psychopathy, passe. Being rewarded for being a deceitful, living a lie type liar, the biggest lie imaginable, that's 2019. Be the biggest liar you can be. Why are these kids going crazy? Who could tell? I mean, surely social media has nothing to do with this. Not just making them depressed and anxious because of the false reality they're competing with. It's splitting the ego. So they have their real world ego and then their online fantasy persona, and they both need to be fulfilled. We didn't interview him for the documentary, but I have a cousin who's 21, and he admitted after a couple of drinks that if he's not regularly updating his Instagram with what he's up to, he feels anxious. And I'm like, you've only got 312 followers. Who are you trying to fool? But this is the exploitation of human vulnerability. We believe as individual human beings in the concept of an audience, the other, and it's infinite because we can't count past 10. Like I can think of 10 people, and if you say, you know, the thing with like genocides, like if I killed 10 people, you'd be horrified. If I ordered the deaths of 10 million people, you won't be 10 million times horrified. You can't. There's a limit to human, like we can't figure it out. In fact, you'd probably have a more neutral feeling. If I ordered the death of 10 million people, you'd be like, gosh, that's terrible. But if I physically kill 10, you'd be like, you're a piece of shit. So we don't have the software to actually conceptualize 300 humans are looking at me, or 30,000 or 300,000 humans looking at me. Someone is looking at me. And to the brain, it's the same deal. And that's what, you know, it further enforces the anxiety of like, I have to do something. I have to be seen. I have to make a spectacle of myself or else I cease to exist. Yeah.
You said yesterday, Rich, about if you don't post something about something that you're doing, you don't feel like you've done a day's work.
No, not at all. It's very, very strange. I was talking to that of my partner last night, and it is like I don't exist. It's coming to the point where I don't exist as a filmmaker unless it's online, which is really odd. And I remember when music turned from being a CD that you gave someone, because I used to record music, couldn't sing for help, it didn't really matter, and you give someone a physical CD, and I think, well, that's there, that's always there, there's a record there. But then when it was online, I'm like, well, I've done all this work, and if you put an MP3 up, someone shuts the website down, it doesn't exist anymore. And I found that really the same sort of concept, is that it only exists in this little world through the screen now. And if I don't do something online that day, post something, promote something, I do feel like I've done no work. But I could have spent all day in a meeting that's going to lead to something quite fruitful. But then I'll have to tell people about it online, or it won't really have mattered. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's the same as if you've been to the gym. If you don't post a picture of you in the gym, you haven't worked out. You know what I mean? Like, you've got literally no exercise done.
Are you a personal trainer, Gareth?
Yeah.
There's a guy who's in my gym that I train at regularly, and he's about 35, and he's probably like 5 kilos overweight, but he has like the shoulders and the biceps and stuff, and he just looks like a normal lad who probably eats a bit too much and then lifts a lot of weight, whatever.
Yeah.
He can do this thing where he takes a picture of himself, and it's not just the picture, it's in real life. He does this pose where he drops like 10 kilos. I've seen him do it 3 times. I'm like, is he like saying magic words? Is he like going abracadabra and then he looks totally different. He's mastered this. He's got this pose he can do where he just changes the shape of his body, and then he stops and he goes, and he's just back to normal.
That's a good point, though, isn't it? That's a good point, because will we all start doing that? We all start like posing in front of each other because there's possibly a photo going to be taken. It's a point where we all become silicon versions of like us. So we're all posing, which is the Stepford Wives thing, which is the pop star thing. We all become really odd, cyborgy type. And I don't think artificial intelligence, as I was saying yesterday, is really a technical thing. I think it's a psychological thing. And I think we're being programmed to be artificial versions of humans. Not now, but maybe in 200 years.
No, I think with the 2 things. One, with the fella, going back to the fella, he will almost certainly at some point have body build, and so you actually are taught different poses and stuff that work.
Okay.
Generally, with women, it tends to be the carbs, and they wear high heels and they do things to kind of affect the legs and whatever. Again, it's fraudulent. Do you know what I mean? It's a trick.
Yeah.
The other thing, when you're saying about like this kind of fraudulent reality, it's not real. It's almost like a Vanilla Sky type thing, isn't it? Like, I don't know if you've seen that film, where social media is giving you the opportunity to get the hell out of what you think is your own life, and your own life's shit. So even those people that aren't, heaven forbid, that aren't, going and doing something silly and taking their own life or whatever, other people are still getting absorbed into social media. They're still losing their life, essentially.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because at the gym yesterday, when I was a bit spaced out in between sets, I started thinking, if I was more paranoid, if I was properly paranoid, and I was like, what could this be the beginning of? What could the end game be? Actually, if you see these young people, they're only young for about 10 years, then they'll be us, and then we'll be old. So you're actually training adults to think, life is shit. Love isn't real. Families don't matter. Religion's bollocks. Spirituality's bullshit. Everything's being done. And you go, so you end up with a generation of humans who are massively depressed and massively disenfranchised. Isn't that what you would do, the problem reaction solution model? So you give them a problem and you get them all going, something needs to be done. And then you go, listen, guys, you remember the film The Matrix? Right? We're not going to force you into the pod. However, if you do go in the pod, everything is amazing. You're a rock star in there. And we've fixed this, the virtual reality tech. We held it back. We figured it out back in 1995, but we held it back from you. We've perfected it. All of your needs will be taken care of. Your physical needs, your emotional needs, your psychological needs. It's amazing. Get in the fucking pod. I think, if I was really paranoid, I would say, well, you could argue that that's what we're marching towards. What are they being conditioned to feel? Like, there's no point to anything, so I'll either kill myself, and you go, no, you're thinking of killing yourself, or we have the pod. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's also with the...
As well, video games now, especially the virtual reality ones, they're so believable now. And like we've spoken about before, what's in the public arena isn't what the technology is. Do you know what I mean? So what is the technology? I think that you're probably right. You can just, if you've got enough money, it'll probably start off like that. If you've got enough money, get in the pods and live the life of a rock star. And then in the end, that will kind of almost just spread out for everyone.
Yeah, I think the technology is well above. I think it was a few weeks ago in I think it was South Korea, somewhere like that. They put all these robot, I don't know, soldiers out, and they look hilarious. I mean, these things they can't move properly, and you think they're not going to hurt anyone. These things, and everyone's going, "Wow, they've got robot soldiers." I'm thinking they look like tin men, and they move like this, and it's like, well, yeah, if it shoots me, I'm dead, but I can go around a corner or downstairs. It's like Daleks. And you think, that's not the technology. You can put a man in the moon and you can probably time travel now. That's not the technology. That guy can't move in that suit if it's a man in there, or if it's a robot. The robot can't bloody move. There's technology.
Listen, there's absolutely no need for robot soldiers. The technology for robot soldiers is flesh and blood. It's humans, and we know that for a very long time they've been in test tube situations. They've been developing the right kind of DNA that would make perfect soldiers. I think that's totally passe. Robot soldiers is a distraction. They'll be flesh and blood, and you will be able to get them to do whatever you need them to do. Any hideous genocide or any massacre, very, very easily able to get them to do it. And they'll be stronger and fitter than the average human being, which is all you need. On that point of technology not being revealed, I personally don't believe that the machine guns we use today is the best end of weaponry that we got. The machine guns we use today is based on technology from 1925. The planes that you and I fly in commercially is based on technology from 1935. No more developments. It just stopped. Weaponry and transport stopped in its development. Get the fuck out of here. There's just no way.
I was like that
there's just no way.
I got the plane to you, Manchester. I went out onto the driveway and I looked at it and I thought, there's no fucking way that thing's staying in the air. That is ridiculous. It's got like sellotape around the back of it. I was like, there must be more technology than that.
When you fly from Norwich to Liverpool, you fly, is it a 12-seater or an 18-seater?
It's like an 18-seater. It was awful. Got a free can of Coke though.
Yeah, well, that's a bonus.
That's what I thought. But
just going back to the film.
Yeah.
We spoke yesterday, and you mentioned the fact that you are doing a follow-up of the film. Will you be using the same people that you spoke to the first time round, and almost kind of coming back to them, seeing how they've developed as a result of the knowledge, or whether they're so in the game that they've just nothing's changed?
We have different options for that. We'll definitely be using the same young people again because they were nice, easy to work with. They're intelligent, and they made an effort. There's different avenues we could go down. I could double down on the demands that we make of them. There's a psychology experiment that was just done out of a university in America. Sam Vaknin drew my attention to it, Richard. They've copied the experiment. Have you seen that?
What, our experiment?
One month, yeah, exactly. 1 month without any social media, and then report how you feel.
Really?
But they paid them all $100, and they did it with students, which is what we did. We did it with students. So we could do that again and pay people and go, look, this time, because we did a light version where you could use social media if you needed to. We could do a stronger version and give them more money. Maybe we could look at doing that. There's other different avenues that I'd like to explore, and I want to keep the development of the project as organic as possible, like a conversation. So if people are like, we want to talk about this, we'll follow that up and do that. Sam Vaknin was a critical component in the development of the last one, and I think he'll be a critical component in the development of the future ones because, well, he's dead clever and he reads a lot more than either of us do, and he keeps on top of these things. So we'll be looking at where he's pointing at with that. To the Sam Vaknin point where Richard was saying before, he doesn't feel like the work has been done unless somebody acknowledges it. And now these kids don't feel like they're alive unless somebody is acknowledging it online. Sam has developed this idea around narcissism, religion, and artificial intelligence, whereby social media is permitting us all to become individualized gods, like a little version of God through social media, with all of the psychopathy and narcissism of an Old Testament Yahweh. And I've heard that. I'm like, with a lot of things that Sam says to me, I'm like, well, that's blown my mind. It's probably going to take me about 2 months to work through that. As a sideline thing, what I like to do, I'm very, very into religion, especially the Abrahamic religions, and looking at the history of them. So last night I had a bit of insomnia. So to get myself off to sleep, I'm looking at people who've studied Abrahamic religion. And lo and behold, I fall across a line of study that looks at how obsessed the Abrahamic God was with being seen. He's constantly demanding that people bear witness. The word witness is used again and again and again in the Bible. The Gospels, that we have are actually witness testimonies. I saw this. He did this. It definitely happened. The whole Abrahamic structure, especially in Christianity, is obsessed with you must see me. And the God who is not seen begins to die. And so you have his paranoia, like, you worshiping other gods again. I'll fucking kill you. You worship me because I shrink when you don't see me, and I expand when I'm worshipped and acknowledged. That is pure narcissism, absolute narcissism. But it was interesting for me to see this line of reasoning, because I'm like, really all we're doing is bearing witness to each other. When Richard posts something and says, I did this today and I like it, it's like me saying, I see you, I've borne witness to you. And then you will literally get a dopamine release and go, oh, I was seen. Oh, good. If I get one scene, that's good. But 200 scenes is even better than that. So there is this sort of sense of which the further along this line we're going, I think that originally I was like, social media, that's scaremongering. That has nothing to do with anything. Actually, I think we're going to get to the point where what we're seeing with the tech usage, not just social media, but the fact I have the smartphone in my pocket, so it's combined, is actually going to be about creating an evolution in consciousness. Not necessarily a good one, but an evolution in consciousness, because we're hitting, the concept of peak oil. It's like we're hitting peak narcissism. Like, what are you going to do to get your likes on social media? And some people are already literally killing themselves to get likes. As we know, they free climb over buildings and then fall off. Well, they stick their heads out of trains and pull them in, and some of them forget to pull it in too, and then they get shot. You read about the guy whose girlfriend shot him with a 50 caliber pistol for YouTube. These fucking dummies. That he put a telephone book on his chest, and they're American. What? I'm just saying they're American. That's incidental.
They're obviously going to be American.
She takes a Desert Eagle, which with 50 caliber bullets, which are huge, heavy things, fires it at him, and then just shoots him right in the fucking sternum, and he dies instantly.
No.
For YouTube. So we're already at the point where people are literally killing themselves to get the sustenance of likes. It's like I was saying yesterday, there's not a looming crisis on the horizon. We're in it. We're in the maelstrom. We're in the crisis now. It's already passed. It's already, in some senses, too late. We just have to sort of try and ameliorate the damage that's being done.
Do you see a positive in it? Like, in terms of, because I was going to ask, where do you think it goes next? But obviously, if we're in the middle of it at the minute, only reason being, like, just a handful of years ago, you'd probably check your phone or your social media maybe in the morning, and you go to work, and you check it in the evening when you got back or whatever. Now people are just on it constantly. Me personally, I have to use bits and bobs in terms of work, so I'll be on it for work. Same with you guys. So there is no escape anymore. It's constant, isn't it? It's with you all the time. Everything you talk about, everything you search is picked up, and then adverts are put in place. And like you were saying yesterday about people are searching suicide out of interest because they might be contemplating it, and then the algorithms pick that up and then just throw at them suicidal posts and groups and discussions that are promoting suicide. So you've got a suicidal person and all the algorithms going, oh yeah, you want more suicide? Well, obviously in the end it's going to tip them over the edge, isn't it?
Yeah. I actually ran that experiment last night after we spoke. I won't show you the images here. So what I did, I re-downloaded Instagram. I jumped on it with a fresh account, totally beginner account. And I was like, okay, I want Instagram to show me messages about bulimia, anorexia, and suicide. So I started following the tags. Now, to Instagram's limited credit, with certain tags, hashtags, they are now saying, okay, you're trying to follow hashtag depression. Do you need help? If yes, click here for support. If you're okay seeing these images, click through and see the images. First of all, Instagram asked, are you 18? And I went, yes. There's no fucking way of knowing if I'm 18. Then it said, are you okay with seeing these images? And you know what effort it took? It took my thumb going like this, and then I get to see the images. Inside of 5 to 7 minutes, I'm faced with this collage of the most disturbing, disgusting, really, like, I felt sick. and I've been working as a counsellor since I was 22. I started in the probation service. I've seen and heard some nasty stuff. This was dark energy. It was like I'd opened a gateway into hell. It was awful, and it was teenage girls talking to teenage girls about being a bulimic, about hating yourself, about cutting yourself, and then showing there's tons of images of self-harm, fresh, like I just cut myself, self-harm, unblurred, uncensored. It's just there. It took me 5 minutes. So then I wake up this morning and I go, I wonder how Instagram has learned what it is that I quote unquote want. And of course, my feed is just full of bone-thin girls and boys who are talking about how much they hate themselves, who are posting music videos about self-loathing, who are glamorizing self-harm. And I'm like, that took me less than 20 minutes worth of work to train Instagram to just feed me hot, evil, hellish garbage. Yeah. And it has no idea. I could be a 12-year-old. I could be whatever. Yeah. You know, it's has no idea what's happening. For them to say, we've covered ourselves because certain hashtags are banned. When we were shooting the documentary, we interviewed a girl who had been an anorexic, and she said, you can look for pro-ana, which is pro-anorexia, like anorexia tips. That's banned on Instagram now. Pro-ana is gone. Okay, well done, Instagram. You took away one thing. But anorexia is not. Bulimia is not. Anorexia tips. You can just go and get tips on how to be a better anorexic and how to develop your eating disorder, and don't eat too much today, don't go over your 300 calories today if you really want those goals. And then they post pictures of other kids who are stick thin, who are probably on the verge of death, who are probably so malnourished their teeth are falling out, and go, goals, that girl's body, that's what I want the bones coming through. I'm like, come on, Instagram, Jesus, you do something about this. It's right there. You can't. I'm an idiot. I know nothing about tech. I can find them. So just go through the accounts and just start blocking people. How hard is it?
Exactly. Like we said yesterday as well, it's not even in terms of what you search. Like a year or so ago, I was at the football with a friend of mine, and a cat, which often scratches my car, had gone full on mental and decided to shit on the top of my car. Amazing. So I washed off the shit, and it had damaged the paintwork. I was like, oh, this is going to cost me a fortune, get it sorted, blah, blah. So I was talking to my mate, Albino, and I was whinging. I was saying, oh, fucking cat. I'm going to turn it into a pair of gloves. And he said, what you need is some tea-cut. I've got some tea-cut at home. I'll bring some tea-cut round tomorrow, and you'll get it out. Not a problem. I was like, job done. Later on, I'm on the Facebook, and it's showing me adverts for tea-cut. Now, I've not searched that. I've not put that in a search engine on Google or anything. It's a conversation. So it's been picked up on the microphone of my phone, which is sinister and dark and horrific. But then I think, okay, just thinking this, what if I confided in one of you guys about real dark thoughts? Oh, I just said, look, Rich, can I have a word, mate? I'm really struggling, X, Y, and Z. Well, am I then going to get hashtags on Instagram for depression, for anorexia, for suicide or whatever? Because I've opened up to tell you about it, because it's picking up my microphone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, it's certainly possible, because I've done coaching, and it makes me laugh every time this happens. Sometimes I do coaching with people, and because they're Muslim, we have to coach within the Islamic faith. So you don't want to say anything that goes outside the faith. And if I'm not sure, I'll just go, I'm going to give you a piece of advice, but I don't know if the imam would like this, so you need to check. Because we've got to, they're not very religious, but semi-religious. They don't want to do anything that's non-Islamic. So we have these sessions, and because we're using Arabic terms and we're talking about marriage and relationships and love within Islam and blah, blah, every time the algorithms pick up that I'm a Muslim female seeking a Muslim husband, and I get hit with adverts for, are you looking for the perfect Muslim husband? And I'm like, not at the moment. I'll let you know if I am. Every time that happens. Now, these are intimate conversations, quite sensitive material. That this thing doesn't care how sensitive it is. It just goes, oh, there's a possibility to sell you something, because it's selling me like memberships to Islamic dating sites, marriage sites.
And that's just if it's doing that on a kind of a less intrusive level. Because on another level, they could be listening to everything they are listening to everything that you're doing, everything you're doing. And then, basically, if you had access to someone's microphone on their phone, which you do, you could literally, if you wanted, you could destroy someone.
Absolutely. They've seen, we were talking about this, the Internet of Things yesterday, weren't we? And the fact that your, for some reason, your washing machine and your fridge have got microphones in them. There's transmitters in them to be connected to your to the Internet of Things. So when you get your smart meter, they can tell how much you're using. So, and now I've had a friend do this, and he goes, "Yeah, well then I know how much electricity I'm using." I go, "Yeah, but you don't know," because it happened to me in a different way. When the old pound ones you put in, and the guy came around and cranked it up, so the pound would only last 10% of what it used to last. That they can put that up, so they're controlling how much you use, so they can use that against you. So they'll know you use your fridge too many times, so they'll bung it up. But the fact is, they know where you are all the time. It's bizarre. What? But point back to that point is they can hear you through. If this is true, and it seems to be, they can hear you through your fridge. They can hear you through your washing machine.
All my kinky sexual role play has already been filed with MI5. So Absolutely. If I step out of line, they'll be like, "We're just going to release these audio files."
Yeah.
You'll never believe what he was doing in front of his fridge.
But that's the thing, though. You're right. You do have absolutely access to absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny in terms of social media, because if you said to me, say, okay, every single day you need to send an email to MI5, say, you need to tell them where you went today, who you went there with, who you spoke to, and what you had for food, okay? I'd go, fuck off, mate, having a fucking laugh. But that's fine, because they just have to have a look on your Instagram or on your Facebook or on your Twitter. Oh, he went there and he had that cream cheese bagel. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It's bizarre. Then you think, how do people get away with like murders? Because you're tracked everywhere, so they must be being allowed to get away with it. Because surely, if you've got a phone on you or you're seen on CCTV everywhere, you're monitored everywhere. I find
people. There was a case recently. I was discussing this with some lads who I know from Liverpool who are in the security industry. If people do murders now, they're smart enough to leave the phone. You don't take your phone on a murder. But what one guy did, he was a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend.
Yeah, selfie.
He took his fucking fitness monitor with him. He took his and it tracked on GPS.
Did it?
And they were like, "Did you ride past this gentleman and shoot him in the head off the back of a bicycle?" I went, "No." But your fucking Fitbit says that you were right there at 10:18, which just happened to be the moment at which he got clipped. Were you not there? He was like, "No, that wasn't me." So even your fitness stuff can monitor it, but people who know what they're doing, they won't take smartphones with them.
But
and they'll use burner phones. They'll use the dumb phones if they're ever going to.
But you've got these in Sweden now. They're having chips put in them, aren't they? To get on trains, I can pay for my train fare because I've got a chip in my arm. Well, that's you done.
It's really common there as well. I remember when I was in Sweden a couple of years ago with my dad, a fella came up at the end in the theatre. Real nice guy, to be fair, English guy, and he was working in Sweden. He was like, "This is what I've got," and it was in sort of that area in there. And so when he arrives at work, he goes, "Boop," and then walks in. And like my old man was like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? If you've gone and done that, like, what's the point in you coming and listening to this stuff? It's like a waste of
time. Yeah, and the technology is such that you can carry little swipers. Like, are you that bothered about losing it? You just carry a thing. Or there's a guy I know in America, a mate of mine in America, he's trying to develop jewelry for it so that you could do it off a bracelet or something. You don't need it in your skin. That's a really weirdly submissive and masochistic life choice to make.
Yeah, it is. It's extraordinary. And with that kind of stuff, I think like you tend to get some people come back and go, "Well, yeah, but if you've got nothing to hide, why would it matter if you had them?" And it's like, well, that's not the fucking point, mate.
It's not about hiding, is it? It's about having your privacy. It's not the same thing as hiding.
It's the same excuse you hear it with facial recognition. Well, if you're not got anything to hide, why are you bothered? It's like, what?
There must be certain personality traits. I'm not familiar with them, but the psychological profile of people who have that attitude is going to be similar, and there must be some trait that they're high in and another trait they're very low in, because they talk the same way, they tend to think the same way, and they tend to be very submissive to authority, which is nothing wrong with that if the authority is trustworthy. But when in human history has localized authority ever been trustworthy? It's always been exploited and abused.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's true, and it's funny because like you mentioned earlier, you would say to people, oh, this is what's going on, as in terms of social media, it's not real, and they would go, yeah, I know it's not real. Well, those people that you would have if you had a conversation with them about, say, facial recognition, they would bring out that, well, if you've got nothing to hide. 5 minutes later, if you said, oh, the local government's not trustworthy because of X, Y, and Z, they go, oh God, I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. And you think, how have you not put those two things together?
That's it's a really, really good question. There's a concept from Freudian psychoanalytic psychology. It's called the fetishist split, and it's where a person holds two totally disparate concepts about the world and sorts them side by side. They actually put them in the brain in the same place. So but you do not know. You know it's not true. You know very well it's completely not true, and yet you choose to act as though it isn't. My hypothesis is probably because the cost is too high. And I've when it comes to that kind of thing, I've experienced a desire to not see reality in my own self. And I've gone, why am I in such weird denial about that? And then when I actually thought it through, I was like, well, because if you actually accept the reality of this, the cost is going to be very, very high. For me, it was 9/11 when I was really young, when I was like 22 or 23. And I actually remember exactly where I was. I was driving through my hometown, and I'd come to a junction where it was left or right. And it was like, I really don't want to believe that that's true. And I'm like, okay, but here's the evidence. And I was like, no, but if that is true, what's the consequence? And the consequence to me personally was high. It was very, very damaging, because at that age, I wanted to join the army. And I was like, I can't. That's no longer an option. So a whole life that I could have lived, career, money, status, whatever, boom, that's gone. Just because if I accept, so I think for everybody who's already invested in the system, they're already paying their taxes, they're already a wage slave, the idea that it's not that way and accepting it, the cost is just way too high.
I think what you're saying there is you come straight back to social media then. People, if you ask them, like Gareth was saying earlier, social media is bad, and then they go home and just get on it and don't really care. There is a fetishist split there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. What's the cost of me accepting that, if truly accepting that social media is that's why the job we have is going to be hard. Actually getting these kids off social media when they're actually trauma bonded to it and they're fully attached to it, I think is going to be really, really difficult. It's going to be really difficult.
And it's just a new thing, isn't it? Sorry, Gareth.
But it's a challenge that it's a powerful thing to do as well. If even if you just help one person, do you know what I mean? That's an achievement, isn't it? Do you get something from that? Like when you made the film and you're speaking to people, and because it is really interesting how they open up, and you can see almost with a couple of them how they almost feel like a weight's been lifted off their shoulders. And I know you're not doing it for the plaudits, but do you get some enjoyment out of that? We're just like, yeah, do you know what? This is great. Like, we're going to help people.
Yeah, well, I think we both feel the same way about the end of the film, which was the conclusion that we sort of came to was that what people are craving is connection with other humans, and the machine is tricking you into thinking that that's where you get connection with other humans from, through a machine, which is a great trick. The devil's played a great trick there. Like, I want us to connect with other people. Well, just connect to the person on the bus next to you. No. That I won't get likes that way. I must go through the machine. So the hope is in convincing people that actually by connecting face to face in the real world, in flesh, with other humans, is going to give them way more enjoyment than the machine, which just keeps them addicted and keeps them hungry.
It does make me laugh with that. I see it a lot in pubs. And people will probably think it with me from time to time, because I work on my phone quite a bit. So occasionally I will be in a pub, but I'll have to reply to an email. So I might look the same. But you see some people that be in groups of 4 or 5 lads, and all 5 of them are on a mobile phone. Mm-hmm. Pint of lager in front of them, and they've gone out. They've clearly arranged to meet each other. They've gone, like, do you know what? I'd like to spend time with these 4 lads. And then you sit on your mobile phone talking to other people that aren't there when you were there. What was the point? You may as well just fucking stayed at home, bought a 4-pack of lager, saved the money, and just sat at home on your phone.
I'm extremely aggressive in pubs, and I usually threaten to insert phones into people's anuses if they don't put them away.
I just
There's a lad I went to a pub with last month, and he took a picture of his pint of Guinness. And I said, don't post that. Don't fucking post that. Nobody gives a fuck that you're drinking that pint of Guinness. Even you don't give a fuck that you're drinking that pint of Guinness. If you post it, I want to punch you in the face.
I end up using the same line every time if I'm there, and I'll go, has anyone got a mobile phone? and you just see yeah. Carry on. Like,
It's bizarre, and it is that false reality connection. And I think what happens is that we all go out with people that we don't actually know or like, because we don't have anything in common, because we don't ask. So we'll go out, we'll sit there with people that we maybe went to school with, but now we have nothing in common with. And like, if us three go out, we probably will sit and talk about this sort of stuff because we're interested in it. But they're going out with people that they don't actually know very well anymore, because the connection is splitting and it's becoming further and further apart. So they don't really know what to connect about. So they'll ask you, oh, how's your kid? But they'll only know you got a kid because you put it on social media. I saw you on social media with your... It's a weird... It's almost like they put a middleman in the middle of connections. There's someone in the middle now.
I think if I went out for a beer with you guys, I'd want to talk to you about your Mr. Man mug. I think I'd have an
Have
issue
you
with
noticed that? What, Little Miss Sunshine?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd probably want to talk to that.
Do you know what? I didn't even notice what it was until then. And then I looked at it and I just thought, shit.
I'm going to call you that from now on. I'm looking at doing digital detox retreats for young people, and one of the things that I'm going to talk to them about on the retreat, if it ever comes off and I get them sat in front of each other, is it's worthwhile learning how to have a conversation and how to look at people and converse and to share with vulnerability that which you feel passionate about. Like I'm passionate about like religion. It's a weird thing to be. I'm not a religious person. I just like studying the way it developed. It's kind of weird. It's weird. Or I'm passionate about martial arts. It's kind of weird. But everything that we're passionate about is weird. Passion is always eccentric and off the wall. But it's compelling to talk to somebody who's in their mode of, I'm really fascinated by this. So teaching them how to do that and how to listen to each other without this like half blocking the face so they have one eye on you.
Do you know, I'm going to screenshot that, and that's going straight
on. Put like a pyramid on it and just write Illuminati confirmed.
Grannon.
Richard Grannon is a Satanist.
Mate, you can be accused of anything on the internet these days. I'm Richard Branson's son, and my old man's Richard Branson. There's a whole website dedicated to that man.
How does that come about?
Something to do with the fact they look similar, and it picked up like
what?
It was very odd. And then they said, well, what do you think of his kids then? And this guy was like basically saying, oh, Gareth's actually Sam Branson. And I was thinking, well, I wouldn't mind some of the money. But the best bit about it was someone went, well, because at the time I was in a struggling little punk band, and they were like, well, if his dad is Richard Branson and he's Sam Branson, why is he not signed to Virgin then? Do you know what I mean? Like, why is he not? Yeah. And he replied, that'd be too obvious.
Well, you get... That would it? That would be obvious, but the fact that you're two separate people... It was like when everyone thought Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson were the same person. And he had to go on an award show and say, we are not the same person for this sister. It's really funny. It's mental. But then you talk about possibly that they might be watching us through a phone, and then you're mental. We're all... Do you know what I mean? That sounds more plausible than you being Richard Branson's son. I know you're not Richard Branson's son. I've met you.
Yeah. I also think, though, if you live in a world like we do, with what's going on and how we're bombarded from social media to the food we eat to everything, I don't trust anyone that isn't a bit mental.
Yeah, I totally agree.
If you've got your shit together like 100% and everything is perfect and everything's amazing and it's legit, I don't trust you. I think you're a liar.
Yeah, of course you are.
Or a psychopath.
Or a psychopath, yeah, exactly. Because that's the perfect term. Yeah, if you can look at what's going on here, babies being blown up in Yemen and go, everything's fine, then you've got to be a bit scared.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things when they are saying to me about feeling upset, feeling depressed, I would always sort of say, look, don't feel like a freak because you're upset and depressed. It's a sign of intelligence. It's a sign of awareness. Like, the world is not great. It's got problems and they need fixing. If you're just like, oh, everything is wonderful, then there's something not quite firing up there. My hope is in the idea that people can gather in the evening around sunset, around the campfire, metaphorically or not, and look at each other and talk to each other, that we're tapping into something that we've evolved to do. It's something to do with connection. It's something to do with being witnessed. It's something to do with being heard, and that will actually level out the the hormonal imbalance that's occurring with people who are really depressed and anxious. And that one simple thing, I can't profit from that because there's no drugs to sell, there's no program to sell. You just sit down and chat to each other and you feel better. That one thing could be the key that unlocks the door with this. And I'm wondering if I can get them away from their phones for long enough and reconnect them or get them into something else, which is actually just chatting to each other. Maybe that's the hope. Maybe that's where we can find a way out.
There's a scene for the documentary. There's someone wrote a song called Campfire, didn't they?
Yeah, plug.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, I think that's a wicked place to end it. On a positive, where you have a solution that I think can work. I think, it's almost like the film Grown Ups. It's an Adam Sandler film, so it's kind of pretty unintelligent sort of film, but where I don't know if you've seen it. Where
the first one's really good.
Yeah, where they
Worth
go out to the lake, and his kids are just obsessed with their phones and all this sort of stuff. And in the end, because they're forced to be in the countryside and there's no Wi-Fi connection, and in the end they're actually like, no, this is awesome, So you just need to get people out of it and just say, look, like you said, sit around a campfire. This is amazing. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
Like, I want the same with Alora. Like, we're trying to get her. I mean, she's only 8 months. Well, she's 8 months old tomorrow, but we're trying to get her already into a school not far from us, which is it's basically, we call it a hippie school. It's obviously not what it is, but where it's all outdoors, and so she'll be climbing trees instead of playing on iPads, and that's what I want. Like, that's so important.
Definitely.
But in going back to the internet, you've got a website now. What is the website for the film?
It's called pluggedinsocialmediadocumentary.com. But if they put in Digital Detox Dude, which is easier to remember, that goes to the same website. It's pointing at the same website, digitaldetoxdude.com. And you can message me, dude, at digitaldetoxdude.com.
Awesome. That email address was created in like about 1994, 95. Dude. Yeah.
People will remember it though. That's
perfect. We'll put it in. I'll put it in the chat box underneath in the description box, and just click on it.
Thank you.
Big thanks, guys. Big thanks for this. I really enjoyed it. Again, I'm sorry I look like an absolute mess, and I'm just in my bed.
You're all right.
But with a hoodie.